Why do you say you can't make the movie you want? You have to make the movie that sells?
Yeah, I tend to believe that goes all the way up the line. Um, when I look at Scorsese and Coppola and people like that, I think they're making the same kind of compromises in one way or the other, because ultimately there's first of all, there's just too many moving parts to just make everything exactly like you want, um, and there's too many chefs in the kitchen. There's the actors that have their ideas. There's going to be the producers and the distributors, and of course the filmmakers are going to all have. Everybody has their own ideas, and so you have to make something as close to where you want it as possible. But I doubt that there's the perfect movie that ended up on the final cut exactly the way it was intended to have been made. Um, it's really a question of making sure that you get the story that makes sense and that does what it's supposed to do, both creatively and financially. That keeps you working. If you can get things done and make whatever compromises you need to make, but still have a certain level of creative integrity and make the experience good for people, then that's how you continue to work. And I think that it's an admirable goal to make the perfect film, make the film that just one that we want to make, that doesn't have to have the action scene in the first 10 minutes. Reason it would need the action scene in the first 10 minutes if our story requires it. If it doesn't, it requires it at minute 20, 30, it doesn't matter. So I think that we're all striving for that perfect film the way we see it in our head. And um, and sometimes it can be even a little bit better, but rarely. It's always a little bit better in your head than how it comes out, because it's just the nature of the creative process, the nature of the collaborative process makes it so it doesn't just all exist in your mind's eye. It has to go through a lot of different people's mind's eyes and other resource-based things, and through the edit and the final cut and the sound and everything else, to the point where, if you're lucky, you can be surprised and have it be another version of that perfect film. But and then it becomes maybe perfect in its own unique way. But as far as it coming out exactly the way it exists in your head, I just don't think that that's ever going to happen.
When you did your first film where you were the producer, did you already have a distributor working with you?
No, we did not. We did that film with private money, and we did not have a distributor. And if we would have, I'm sure they would have told us to do certain things different. Probably put a little bit more action in it and things like that. But once we did, this is where you get the dream stuff. Because once you have a movie like that in the can, people start to come at you like they want to sell it. And they tell you all kinds of stuff. We're going to give you a 4-picture deal. You give us that movie, and we're going to give you a 3-picture first look. We're going to do all this stuff. We're going to get you this. My friends over at William Morris, they're going to sign you as a writer, and they're going to do all this stuff. Once they get the movie, the first thing they do is do a trailer and start selling it. And all that glamour, washes away, because there's very few films that are attached to nothing like that film was. Had no distributor. It was just a disc drive with a movie with Andy Garcia and Ray Liotta and other people on it, on the film, and everybody wanted it. And so that's what blew our heads up a little bit, to think that we were on this, amazing thing. And you learn, like I said, you learn those lessons pretty quickly when they have this kind of less than cool trailer I'm like, what? Why would they do a trailer like that? Because all they're doing is showing the action for the foreign buyers. And so I'm like, well, why didn't they do the trailer like that cool trailer I saw, the theatrical? Because, and then of course they tell you film's going to go theatrical. We're going to do all these things with it. This is going to be great. This is the beginning of our relationship. And, sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't.
So for your second film, did you have a distributor already attached?
Yes, I did. It actually was the same distributor as the first one, so let me be nice about it. But we did, and I directed it, and it was a completely different experience. I was, I was kind of green as a director, but I understood a lot of the production side stuff, and I also understood a lot of the editing stuff because I had done a lot of editing on the first film. So it was a lot different, but there was a distributor, and the distributor had already pre-sold it. It just so happened they had pre-sold it to this little company called Blockbuster the year they went out of business. So that order went out, and this is part of the fall down and get up program here. Wow. So it didn't do as good as it was supposed to do because it was designed for Blockbuster. So, but it was a beautiful film, and it was a good experience, and certainly learned a lot. And it's, I still consider it probably the best piece that we've done.
So you already saw it on the wall. You pictured yourself walking into the Blockbuster, or was Blockbuster
the one before,
going online at that time?
The film before, La Linea, The Line, was part of this Blockbuster premiere series that it became the #4 video in Blockbuster nationwide. And it had this thing where they had this new thing where they're going to do an independent film and give it the same space as a studio film. And so it was a program. So they had placed the orders for that program. And then they went out of business. We delivered in October. They went out of business, I think, in December. So they canceled it. But hey, like I said, it was still a good movie. It gave us the opportunity to make the film, and eventually it all worked out.
Why not just make the movie you want to make?
Well, I mean, if I had the rich uncle, or if I was the rich uncle, then I probably could make it, and I think I would. I have a couple scripts that I would just want to make exactly the film the way it is. But you kind of have to make the decision. You want to keep working, and keep moving the career down the path, or do you want to create the art that you want? And I think that you can find a balance in that. But at this point, you have to have something to show. You have to have a reel. You have to have movies that you've done. You've got to show, in certain cases, you have to show numbers. So you have to make the film that you're able to make. And investors tend to like that. Distributors tend to like that more than, hey, I'm going to make the film I want to make it. It doesn't matter, if you make or lose your money. We try to do the film as best we can and pepper in all those beautiful moments and pepper in all that beautiful cinematography. But at the end of the day, we have to make the films that people are either giving us money to make, or that the market will bear. So, I would very much like to do a film just the way I see it, just the way every shot. I want to do it this way. I want to do the push in here. I want to do the side shot here. But sometimes there's always going to be compromises in that. And so I think that the key is to make the film that you're making the film you want to make. If you can find that balance inside yourself and inside the filmmaking experience and the product, I think that's a better way to try to kind of maybe find it. Love what you're doing. Maybe it wasn't exactly what you saw, but find the beauty and say, that's amazing. And you have those moments. And some moments are like, well, are a little bit less, but you find the moments and you do your best to string those moments together and then still keep everybody happy so that you can keep moving forward. The true enemy is not moving forward. You have to keep making the films, and you have to keep on pushing that forward. Put the little pieces onto your reel, put the little pieces onto experience, learn the pieces of information, make those contacts. Then you move toward the more perfect filmmaking experience that way. But that is, in my opinion, the more safe trajectory. I don't know if you want to call it safe, but it's the more practical one. To just wait until say, hey, I want somebody to get how brilliant this is, how brilliant this film will be. Well, what have you done? Well, I've done a couple shorts and a student film. Okay. I'd rather show them a vast example of a lot of things that we've done. And they understand that we can get things done and we can get things done efficiently, and we can follow through and pivot and be flexible and bring things back from the brink of disaster, things like that. And then eventually you will get the faith and confidence to do something that is that masterpiece. I think that's just one way to get to the masterpiece. I'm sure some people will sit and wait and send it out enough times and somebody will recognize it and put money into it or whatever. But for me, you just got to take the pieces of everything, even if it's not the best film. You take the pieces that are, show that, and you move the program forward.
And the name of your second film that was supposedly going to be in Blockbuster was?
It's called Across the Line, The Exodus of Charlie Wright. Now, the thing is, the distributor, you learn this about distributors, they always want to put some kind of thing that was related to the original movie, which was Across the Line. But the original name was called The Exodus of Charlie Wright. So, and I thought that was the tone of the movie, but they wanted to put Across the Line in front of it. So it's fine. I got used to it eventually. Pivot.
Do you think most people would have given up after that experience? So this was like what you said, your second film. You came close to having it in Blockbusters. Unfortunately, Blockbuster pivoted out of business, and most people would have given up. You said you talked about having a long tail, like a body of work, and not waiting.
A lot of people I know did, or just felt folded back and kind of waited for something to happen. Some people would have quit, and but a lot of people wouldn't have. I mean, I think that getting your films, having some sort of disappointment in film is just part of the business, and it's just, and if you really can't handle that, especially you can take a break and regroup, which we kind of did a little bit. Take a break and regroup, but if you give up after your second film, then you're probably not in the right business, to be honest with you. You got to keep it moving. You got to really give it a certain amount of time and just nothing happening, and then you say, okay, well maybe I go back to selling insurance or something. But you got to give it the old college try. The way I look at it is this: if I want to be a doctor, I can't go out. If we're in 2022, I'm not going to be a doctor in 2023. It's going to take me 4 years undergrad, 4 years med school, then some other things. Anything that's meaningful and especially, and there's a lot more doctors than there are directors. Anything is complicated and unique as being a director, it's not going to take 2 years. It's going to take 10 years, 12 years. And you shouldn't feel as though some kind of failure or some sort of disappointments they're all part of your school. They're all part of, for undergrad. Then you got to do it one way or the other. The world doesn't work that, you just wake up one day and say, I'm going to do this and just do it. You've got to go through the process. And I think if you look at it like that, if you have that perspective that I'm on year 3, am I really supposed to be a big time hotshot director? Well, you know how the media does. They'll show you those people, but for every one of those people, they don't show you the hundreds of thousands that didn't do that didn't happen for. So I always looked at it like it's going to take a certain amount of time. What we're doing is a very unique thing. It's very sought after. There's not that many people that can do it, and it's going to take a certain amount of time. So just put in the time, put in the work, get ready for the hits. You know, learn the lessons, and then eventually you'll come out on. If you've got the talent and the temperament and the patience and the ability to adjust, then you can carve something out for yourself, and it'll just be to what degree you carve it out. So, but I think that if you can get through that, people will trust you and give you a chance. Yeah.
And also, there's a high degree of skepticism that someone will be a director, whereas if someone takes the proper, steps and they're in residency and all these different things, oh, this is so and so, he's going to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you introduce someone, this is so and so, and he's going to be a director, mm-hmm. It's met with a different response. At least I would
Absolutely.
think so. Yeah.
No, it is because it's just like I'm a writer a lot, but what makes you a writer? Because in theory, I've written 10 screenplays. The question is, how many of those screenplays have been produced? And, what makes the difference between a writer or a professional writer and a successful writer, are three very separate and unique things. And so when you talk about director, either you're directing films or you're not. It's not about prepping the film or developing it or writing a film and putting together the idea to do it. You have to get on a set and say, roll sound, roll cameras, action, whatever that is. And then but you can't just stay and do it on your iPhone or with your friends and your buddies. At some point you've gotta get yourself to the point where you can be noticed and appreciated, and someone to look at you and say, hey, I like what you do. Let's do a little bit more of that. So, you hear people say, I'm a director, I'm an actor, I'm a writer, and good for them. Maybe that's what they need to complete their process, and so that it makes sense for them. So, but at the end of the day, it's the market that dictates where we sit in it and our success. And so it's about understanding the balance between the business and the art, understanding team building, understanding how to put together the resources to keep yourself working and things like that will decide. Ultimately, it's your reel. What have you done? Your reel or your IMDb and things like that. That's ultimately what you'll be judged by. So, you can talk, which is good. Like I said, don't put those people down that say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm writing, I'm directing. I think, great, that's fantastic. But you gotta actually get out there and get the work done too. You must. So